Like, I have work tomorrow at the McWage plantation. I'll be serving fries as someone with 2 degrees and countless internships. But oh no, it's all my fault. Within the last 2 weeks, I literally heard stories of people in my immediate circle fucking up at everything in life, getting into fucking drugs, failing school, and then someone they happen to know just lifting them out of poverty. Like, I mean, I guess it's just all my fault, bro. I should just work harder. It's not enough that I got my degree in a STEM field and did my internships. Oh no. This whole situation just seems like a joke, to be completely honest. Anyways, I just wanted to discuss my story on my commute to work. You know, it may seem irrelevant at the moment, but it does prove the point that connections are all that matter. And the fact that if you don't have them, you're just going to waste your life away. Anyways, like, I was just taking the train to work, and the first thing I noticed was that people were wearing anime costumes. I think there was an anime convention nearby, and there was an Asian guy with bloated McBlobby cheeks with high body fat behind me. And there was what appeared to be a couple sitting in the seat in front of me. This Asian dude walked past me and asked this girl for a picture, right? He tried to cloak it in the sense that he just wanted a picture of her costume. But it was pretty obvious why the short, fat, ugly Asian guy decided to go up to a normie tier white woman, right? I'm pretty sure it's not to admire the costume. Like, I think the reason is obvious. The more these kinds of things happen, the less I'm surprised by them, to be fair. You know, all these people were sub 5. It seems that ugly people generally go to these conventions. When people don't do well in mainstream social circles, they tend to drift into these alternative communities. And it was kind of the same deal with me. I used to go to these events when I was in college. I used to do live action role play. I used to go to Star Trek conventions. I used to go to anime conventions. And the thing that all these activities have in common is that they're expensive. And you know, I come from a middle class background and had next to no bills when I was attending these activities. So it was reasonably affordable for me to go a few states over to attend different conventions, or buying medieval costumes to go to live action roleplay events. On the other hand, if you're poor, like how I am now, and if you don't fit into normie tier social circles, you're kind of forced into your one option of just sitting around at home and playing video games and pull maxing. And unfortunately, society sees that as something that you should be satisfied with. You should be satisfied in your room doing absolutely nothing and having no social circle. It's the premier quote unquote Mick life, as I like to call it. A Mick job offers you a Mick wage, which allows you to have nothing but a Mick life. That's the thing about being poor and working these minimum wage jobs. All they offer you is the luxury of sitting at home and doing absolutely nothing between your shifts, wearing that pathetic uniform. It's a monotonous existence where time just passes you by and you don't really have much to show for it. Fun is reserved for people with actual careers, usually because someone gave them the opportunity to prove that they have something to offer beyond stocking shelves and working at a McDonald's. You know, if you don't get this opportunity, you just end up working at these places for 7+ years and you just are left there wondering where your youth went. I don't think this was always the case. Even 5 years ago, before COVID happened, there was the reasonable expectation where if you worked hard enough, if you actually achieved the minimum accolades, like getting a degree, you could at least have a lower middle class income where you may not have an spectacular life, but you can at least survive on your own and live in your own apartment. That's what the whole quote unquote going back to an empty apartment thing was all about. Now, even that is a luxury. I did my internships, I did my share of clown maxing, trying to build my resume, trying to hustle, doing X, Y, and Z, expecting something once I graduated. But nowadays, knowing that I'll be trapped in a Mick job for the foreseeable future, there just isn't anything to look forward to. Yet I see people around me doing absolutely nothing, like taking drugs, dropping out of college, doing all these crazy things, and they just happen to get lucky and meet the right people. It's not about what you can do anymore. It's all about who you know, and that just hasn't happened to me. Or most of the people that I know that quote unquote did the right things. But the key difference between me and my former classmates is that they generally had more supportive parents. They might have gotten useless degrees, but their parents always had their back. They helped them in some way. They helped them find a job. They helped them get their foot in the door. I think that's the main difference between people like me, where their parents are basically first or second generation immigrant, where you don't necessarily have a family large enough, where you have people that own businesses and people that have connections in your family. And I feel that's the case with a lot of rice cells and like curry cells, Asian guys, Indian guys, where they end up graduating and next thing you know, they're working at a Vietnamese restaurant, right? I mean, I've seen so many instances of educated Asian guys who just end up taking on these McJobs. I personally know a lot of Indian guys that were born in the West and they trained to be a computer science person and they just end up waiting tables or cleaning toilets. They weren't given the chance. Like the degree itself and the skill set itself doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like their parents were immigrants who came here to become software engineers or some kind of other professionals, and they were somehow able to get the same kinds of roles in the US. And they look at you and sort of just blame you for not being able to get the same thing, right? Despite getting the same kinds of degrees. This is the whole premise of my dad's boomer vision. Like he looks at me and assumes that I can just get a job right out of college just because he was able to do so. This simply isn't the case. You could get a Mickey Mouse degree like one of my friends did. Like he literally got a degree in what do you call it, fine art, and his parents just found him a job illustrating books. Like good luck doing that without the connections. I mean, no offense to anyone who did fine art. But like look at me, like I tried to do all the internships I could. I tried to do everything right. And I just ended up in customer service because no one was there to catch me. I mean, it's not like I can't do anything better. Like I've done these kinds of jobs as an intern, but like the full-time jobs just aren't there for people that don't have the connections. And I mean, this kind of ties back into the story. I just wanted to ask this Asian guy a couple of questions because I was just curious. I kind of probed him a bit. I asked him where he went to school, what he majored in, what industry he's working in at the moment. Those questions were easy to probe out since those are kind of the first things that people ask in the US. And he told me that he majored in exercise science. And, you know, I thought to myself, he must be in the same boat I'm in due to his crappy degree. I tried to confirm this by asking him what kind of job he did. He told me he did some kind of photography/marketing job that he got from his dad. I'm thinking to myself, like, what the fuck, man? Like, it's not fucking fair. The worst part was when he questioned me on my anime t-shirt, where he asked me whether or not I was going with him. I told him, no, I'm not. I'm just wearing the t-shirt. And since I'd said I wasn't going, he asked me where I was going to go. I was going to go to my job at the food service place. And I just didn't want to tell him. I said I was unemployed and I was just going to go to the library because I was just that ashamed of having this shitty job. I literally lied and said I was unemployed because these jobs literally dehumanize you. People will just assume that you're not trying just because you're wearing that uniform. You could be the most accomplished person in the world, but if they see you in that Walmart uniform, they'll just assume you're a high school dropout. You know, this just further emphasizes the fact that degrees don't matter. Your skill set doesn't matter. Your resume doesn't matter. All that matters are the connections. I mean, I was talking to one of my friends. I'll be anonymous with this, but he just completed his bachelor's degree and his college dropout brother just joined the military and someone he knew there got him a job earning $87,000 a year with no degree, you know, and I'd be happy with $40,000 a year. And it's so fucking unfair. My friend did everything right. I did everything right. I'm fucking left to rot. And the big three, as I like to say, retail, restaurant, warehouse, and there's no escape. This whole story where someone makes nearly six figures without a degree or any job experience boggles my mind, right? I think my friend told me that he is dedicated to the job, but who wouldn't be if they were earning six figures out of college or out of the military? You could tell someone like me to be dedicated to my shitty job in fucking fast food. The incentive just isn't there. There's no incentive for me to be proud of or to put my best foot forward in a minimum wage dead-end job. My dad just tells me, ooh, just apply, bro. I was thinking to myself, anime conventions are for people with actual careers, not poor people like me who work minimum wage jobs. In fact, enjoying yourself is for people with careers. Simply surviving is for McLosers like me that work their asses off and collect tiny little McPaychecks and live their tiny little McLives. If you're not rich enough where you have to work for a living, you're going to be in this poverty trap if someone doesn't lift you up, right? Whether it's a family member or someone you meet in
college or the military or whatever the case may be. And the terrifying thing about these situations is that you can take one of these retail jobs thinking that you'll be there temporarily and end up having 7+ years of your life stolen from you. You'll just be left there wondering where your youth went. And that's kind of the insidious thing about working at these places. I just graduated with my bachelor's degree, expecting a corporate job right out of college that will, allow me to be an adult, allow me to rent my own apartment and pay my own bills. And I end up not being able to find any jobs any good jobs, and I just end up in one of these retail places living with my parents because I can't afford anything. And next thing you know, you're in your 30s.
Like the whole 30-year-old basement dweller archetype isn't just something that happens because someone gives up, right? It's due to the fact that they're left to fend for themselves, whether it's because their parents can't help them, or their parents won't help them, or people around them can help them or won't help them. After, let's say, getting a degree or graduating from grade school, if people can't capitalize on their skills, they end up rotting on the vine. That's just how things work. Like, the worst part about these things is that you're just never able to become an adult. You're just stuck in your parents' basement, where you're forced to fend for yourself. Like, a lot of people who end up graduating get kicked out of their homes and they just end up living in their cars or on the streets, and there just isn't anything you can do about it. So what's the main idea I'm trying to convey to you guys? It's the fact that if people don't get these lucky breaks in life, they just end up not being able to grow up. They don't have the money to move out, so they're stuck in their parents' basement. And most of us end up in a state of stasis because, again, I talked about this in my previous video. Once people graduate college, they look around. They don't see what they like. They don't like the shitty jobs, the warehouses, the Walmarts that are out there. And they just end up moving back in there with their parents until things get better. Whether they get a lucky break in life, as I explained earlier, or they get an inheritance, which I won't ever get.